From a crazy ex-boyfriend and a psychotic drug addict to a creepy old woman, these are some horror stories about Starbucks. Sit back and grab some popcorn as we explore these scary and intriguing stories from 3 of the scariest horror stories at Starbucks. Story 1. The Weird Ex-Partner. The most unsettling incident that has ever happened to me occurred when I worked at Starbucks. I was on the late shift at the time. Anne, my manager, and I were alone. At 9 o'clock at night, when our facility was closed, we started cleaning up and preparing to head home. We haven't had many customers today, so I was taken aback when a car pulled up to the drive-thru. The person ordering was male, and he requested a grande macchiato. I instructed him to pull up to the first window once he was finished. I was so eager to get out of there because I was preparing the drink as quickly as possible. After I was done, I went to the window, but the car wasn't there anymore. However, it was still parked near the drive-thru menu when I poked my head out the window. I motioned for him to move forward with my hands. However, I was unable to see him well or anything because his bright beams were on. When I peered out again, he was still standing by the menu, but I waited a little longer in case he had something important to do. But as it was getting close to 9 o'clock at night, I was furious. So I took his coffee and left through the front doors. I was astonished to see that no one was inside the car when I finally reached his side door. I was completely perplexed. I asked Anne to come outside so we could decide what to do. Anne came out and spotted me standing next to the car. Her face was filled with sheer dread. Bewildered, I inquired, "What's wrong?" Anne informed me that the license plate identified the vehicle as belonging to her violent former partner. Immediately, I became terrified after hearing that. On the other hand, while we were still thinking of what to do, we saw that someone was approaching us while donning the ghost face mask from Scream. To make matters worse, he appeared to be waving a knife. I was overcome with sheer fear. I dragged Anne back inside the Starbucks by holding her hand. The man in the ghost face mask crashed into the front doors just as we had locked them. The knife was clanking on the pants as he slammed into them. Anne was crying uncontrollably in the corner and informing me that her ex was pursuing her. I used my mobile to call the police, trying to remain as composed as possible. The guy fled back to his car after I yelled at him for what he was doing. Fortunately for us, he hopped inside his car and drove off. Nevertheless, we provided the police with the security videos and explained everything when they arrived 10 minutes later. The license plate belonged to Anne's violent ex-boyfriend, as the police were able to verify. Before now, he had gotten a restraining order against his ex for domestic abuse against her. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison after breaking the limitations by visiting her place of employment. That was one of the scariest nights of my life. I mean, her ex is a complete piece of shit. The thought of what he'll do next once he escapes or is released after the 3 years jail term scares me. Now, before we move on to the next story, please subscribe to our channel, Top Scares, where true stories of horror are told. Remember to like, share, and comment on this video. Let us know what you think about our selection of stories. Story 2. The Craziest Drug Addict. To supplement my income during my high school years, I worked as a barista at Starbucks. Since I had to work afternoon and evening shifts due to school, even though it could be stressful at times, I generally liked my job. After leaving school, I would quickly have dinner before heading to my shift. I worked with just 2 other people. One of the females who was scheduled to attend that day left early since she was feeling under the weather. Although we technically lacked workers, we weren't having too much trouble because it was evening and we had fewer patrons than usual. The Starbucks interior was locked due to quarantine, and the only access available was via the drive-thru. We had less work to do as a result of not having to spend as much time maintaining the store's interior while concurrently serving clients at 2 different locations. While there weren't many customers, I was arranging our supplies and noting what we would need to order and what we were running low on. When a customer came in, the 2 females I worked with would make drinks and man the register. Since we weren't busy, I took the opportunity to sweep the floors. I was midway through cleaning when there was a loud crash that startled me. Glancing up, I noticed a man with ragged clothes pounding on the glass door. Since no customers were permitted inside, the door was locked. I approached the door and motioned for the man to proceed to the drive-thru, not intending to open it and engage in conversation. For a minute or two, the man kept pounding on the door, looking angry. We chose to ignore him, thinking he would finally get the message and turn around to the drive-thru. Although we all thought he was unusual, weird people used to visit us frequently, so we weren't too concerned. We all gasped as I suddenly heard more hammering as I was making my way to the drive-thru window at the back of the store. I heard the girl running towards the window, and when I looked up, I saw that the man was standing there, beating on the pane. Oh my God. For safety concerns, it is not permitted under store policy to use the drive-thru without being in a car. Should I open the window now that I'm unprepared, I wondered. And if the man hadn't grasped that, the store would be closed inside. When a coworker inquired, I urged her to crack it open to see what the person wanted. It was about 9 o'clock at this point, and there were no other customers in the queue. I knew the guy was insane the moment she cracked open the window. When we didn't open the doors, he continued yelling at us to do so. I called my coworker to close the window, but before she could, the man lunged forward and banged it open again, shattering the glass. As we all yelled, I rushed forward, grabbed the girl by the waist, and yanked her away from the man with all my strength, because he grabbed her by the shoulders and started to try to pull her through the window. As this was going on, the other girl who was working with us hurried to get pepper spray out of her purse. Now that I'd gotten the girl back inside, the man was climbing up the window to come closer to us. Just in time, my other coworker came back and gave the man a straightforward facial spray. He collapsed to his knees and started to scream. We then ran back to the room with our lockers and locked ourselves inside. We dialed 911 right away, and fortunately the cops showed up quite quickly. After taking the man to jail, they informed us that he was probably high on narcotics. Although that specific Starbucks implemented extra safety precautions to safeguard the staff following the incident, I never felt comfortable working a night shift there again. Story 3. The Pisco Creepy Old Woman. When I lived in Buffalo, New York, I frequently visited a nearby Starbucks. For students such as myself, who would rather study and complete their schoolwork at a cafe, the coffee shop has always been the ideal location to go. Having free access to their Wi-Fi and an infinite supply of coffee to enable us to stay up late studying was one of the benefits. I would make the most of Starbucks by remaining there until the coffee shop closed for the majority of my undergraduate coursework. As a result, I was familiar with all of the staff members and the rotating shifts, which included the seasonal changes to the menu. However, I also kept a close eye on other customers as they came and went, becoming so accustomed to it that I was able to spot a suspicious customer as soon as they entered the store. However, in contrast to all the youthful professionals and students that came and went from the store, this individual was an elderly woman who was often bothering others, particularly the employees. Whenever she asked the staff to personalize her coffee, she would first make a variety of requests. Then she would drag her out aloud while uttering a litany of absurdities. I thought this woman was crazy, so I didn't hesitate to believe her. She once requested that the waitstaff fill her drink to the brim with all of the sugar they could find. The elderly woman reacted angrily when the worker expressed her concern for her health. She made her demands and smashed her hands repeatedly on the countertop. She became even more agitated when the caretaker attempted to soothe her. Soon after, she took up a chair and tossed it across the floor, which incited one of the employees to call the police. As a result, some customers started to feel uneasy and avoided the queue, while others just left the store to avoid any problems. At this point, I prayed for the police to show up as quickly as possible to stop things from getting out of control because this weird old woman was bad for business. However, the elderly woman spit on the ground and laughed rapidly before the police could arrive at Starbucks. I assumed that was the end of it, But one evening, while I was preparing for an impending exam and one staff member was handling everything, I requested a refill on my drink. However, as soon as the drink was delivered to me, I noticed something unsettling. The drink's color and smell were off. It smelled, for lack of a better word, like there was some type of chemical in the drink that gave it the green and yellow hues. I was afraid to consume it because of how strange it appeared. It was something I had never seen at Starbucks before, and it was the first time I had ever come across something so disgusting that it made me want to throw up. I sought a refund for my beverage because I noted the staff was new to the company, and I knew Starbucks never offered inexpensive drinks. She was perplexed when I later complained, and I even accused her of combining the wrong components. When the rookie made my drink, she claimed to know exactly what she was doing. After that, I started to feel more worried than irritated, but everything made sense when something unsettling happened in the following few seconds. Suddenly, the same old woman from earlier raced from the kitchen to the front door. However, the barista caught up to her and tried to arrest her before she could get away. After a minute of back and forth fighting, the elderly woman was able to flee and get away in a car. I stood there in disbelief, unsure of whether to step in and help or phone the police, but it was too late. At that point, the barista hurried out of the establishment and started taking pictures of the license plate. I reported everything that transpired to 911 over the phone as the offender was leaving. When they finally showed up, about 30 minutes later, they requested to see the security video right away. The authorities were able to identify and track down the offender by largely relying on the different photos of the car's license plate. A week or two later, rumors circulated that the woman had finally been taken into custody at her home. Upon searching her residence, the cops discovered that gallons of rubbing alcohol were dispersed all over the kitchen, living room, and floor. The police initially thought she was selling disinfectants, but after looking into the Starbucks kitchen, they discovered hints that linked the large alcohol bottles at the offender's home to the drinks there, showing that their chemical makeup was exact. The woman refuted every piece of information that suggested she was the suspect when she was arrested and interrogated at the station. It was determined that she had taken dangerous chemicals from home with her, and that she had somehow managed to slip into the shop's back rooms and purposefully taint some of the supplies. I was very happy that the psychopath was taken into custody before more people were harmed. However, after that horrible experience, I refrained from drinking in the Starbucks because I wouldn't know what might be the content. What do you think about Starbucks? Let us know in the comment section below. Do you know that not all clowns are fun? Some are evil. You want to know more? Check out our previous video, Scary Disturbing Clown Stories for a Rainy Night.